We're holding just a couple of days away from Shavuos. One of the names of Shavuos is Matan Torah Seinu. We're all aware that there's a mitzvah min HaTorah of Limud HaTorah. However, before learning, we make a Birchas HaTorah. There's a few brachas in Birchas HaTorah. These two brachas that we say every morning, the bracha of Aharavna, and as well as the bracha of Ashabachar Banu. And then there's also other brachas we say every morning before Kriya Shema, Havas Olam, Hava Rabbah, and as well by night also. That's also a kind of Birchas HaTorah. And we also have a Birchas HaTorah when somebody's Oila to the Torah. The bracha before, the bracha afterwards. We're going to discuss today if the Birchas HaTorah, is it a mitzvah, a chiyuv midiraisa, or only miderabanan? Is it only miderabanan that you have to make a bracha? Most brachas that we make, almost all brachas, are only miderabanan. Or is it actually a mitzvah midiraisa? Like we all know, these one bracha midiraisa believe without a machlokes, and that's Birchas Hamazon. The Torah says very clearly, v'achalta v'savata uveirachta. So that's for sure. There's a mitzvah min HaTorah to bench, Birchas Hamazon. What is by Birchas HaTorah? Is it miderabanan or midiraisa? And even if it's midiraisa, is it a mitzvah midiraisa? If you take a look and say for our mitzvahs to the Rambam, when he lists out all the Taryag mitzvahs, the Rambam does not list the bracha, the mitzvah of Birchas HaTorah. The Rambam doesn't make a mention of Birchas HaTorah, which one would assume that he holds that it's Hakanat Deiraisa. It's only the Rabbanan. Birchas HaTorah is only the Rabbanan. The Ramban, when the Nishkachas on the Rambam, the Ramban on Sefer HaMitzvahs goes through the Rambam's Minyan HaMitzvahs, and he has a list of what the Rambam left out. Mitzvah Saseh and Mitzvah Sloi Saseh. Mitzvah Tesvav, the Ramban says, you left out the mitzvah midiraisa of Birchas HaTorah. There's a mitzvah of Birchas HaTorah, just like there's a mitzvah to learn, there's a mitzvah of Birchas HaTorah. And the Ramban says, I have a mefurish Gemara, that it's deraisa, and I have a mefurish Yerushalmi. The Gemara says in Brachas, Minayin leBirchas HaTorah min HaTorah. How do you know Birchas HaTorah is midiraisa is min HaTorah? Shenemar, ki Shem Hashem ekra, havu goydel elekenu. The Gemara says from the pasuk ki Shem Hashem ekra, that Birchas HaTorah is a mitzvah midiraisa. So how could the Rambam leave out a mitzvah of Birchas HaTorah? It's midiraisa. He also brings the Yerushalmi, that the Yerushalmi discusses...
is in Tehillim?
What did you say?
That pasuk in Tehillim?
Yeah, so you're asking that l'chayra it's only Medivrei Kabbalah. One second, we'll get to Asmachta. The second shaila is the Yerushalmi.
Oh, it's
Nazinu. It's a pasuk in the Torah. And va'oid, Dr. Yerushalmi, Dr. Ramban, the Yerushalmi says mefurish, that he handles just like benching as a bracha afterwards. So the Yerushalmi handles that maybe Birchas HaTorah also you should make a bracha afterwards. The Kal V'Chomer, a discussion in the Yerushalmi says has Birchas on the Kal V'Chomer. But you see, Dr. Ramban from the Yerushalmi also, the Birchas HaTorah is a bracha midiraisa, just like the bracha of, it's midiraisa, just like Birchas Hamazon. And Dr. Ramban, don't come and tell me that just like you find that maybe sometimes you see these one big mitzvah, and in the big mitzvah is nichlal a lot of mitzvahs. In other words, there's a mitzvah of Limud HaTorah, and included in the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah is other mitzvahs. So he says, you see by Bikurim, which is also one of the Shavuos, Bikurim, these two mitzvahs. One mitzvah is to bring Bikurim, and one mitzvah is Mikra Bikurim. Another Rai brings us these one mitzvah of Sipri Yitzias Mitzrayim, and one mitzvah of eating the Korban Pesach. And just like over there, it's two separate mitzvahs. So likewise over here also, it should also be two separate mitzvahs. It should be a mitzvah of a mitzvah midiraisa Birchas HaTorah. That's what the Ramban asks on the Rambam. In Megillas Esther, which is the Pirush on the Ramban that asks on the Rambam, so Megillas Esther explains what the Ramban, he goes into be masber. So the Megillah Esther says, I don't understand. You might want to tell me, like Rabbi Yehuda said very good, that it's a smachta. What's such a shverikait? It's taka a pasuk in the Torah, a pasuk in Azinu, but lamaisa it's a smachta. It's not midiraisa. So he says, Olav lahavi raya. The Rambam has to bring a raya to say. The Gemara says, Menayim min Torah, and he brings a pasuk. Mechat Hesed to come and say that it's only a smachta, it's only Miderabanan. So far, we have a machlekes, the Rambam and the Ramban, if Birchas HaTorah is the Reis or Birchas HaTorah is the Rabbana. The Aruch HaShulchan brings lahalacha that it's the Reisa. We'll get to a little later, nafkaminis, if it's the Reisa, the Rabbanon. It brings that most of the poskim say that it's the Reisa. Even in the Rambam, it's the Reisa. The Rambam is not moined for one of the minyan mitzvahs, so how could it be that it's the Reisa? So he brings the Kiryat Sefer. The Kiryat Sefer is Miyashav, and he says he's a klal in the Rambam, which the Ramban himself already kind of brings up, but he's a klal in the Rambam. The Rambam, in many mitzvahs, counts a few mitzvahs like one mitzvah. He goes through a list of many mitzvahs, but in one mitzvah, when the Torah says one mitzvah, included in that is a few mitzvahs. So it's not counted separately. It's all one mitzvah. And therefore, over here, when the Torah says the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah, included in the mitzvah is also Birchas HaTorah. So even the Rambam will agree that Birchas HaTorah is the Raisa. The Rambam, the Ramban, everybody holds that it's the Raisa. It's only a question, is it a separate mitzvah, or is it all included in the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah is also Birchas HaTorah? But side the Rambam and side the Ramban all agree that Birchas HaTorah is a mitzvah midiraisa. The shaila is, it's a bracha midiraisa. Why do we make two brachas? And also, are both brachas midiraisa? By Birchas HaMazon, we know the first three are deraisa, and the last bracha is the Rabbanan that the Rabbanan added. What is by Birchas HaTorah? What's the hezber that we make two brachas? And why is it why do we make two brachas, and which of the two brachas is deraisa? The Rambam in Hilchas Brachas speaks and makes three categories of brachas that we make. There's one bracha that's Birchas HaNehenin. All brachas that we make before we eat, that's Birchas HaNehenin. Then there's another bracha of Birchas HaShvach. Birchas HaNehenin is food you enjoy. Birchas HaShvach would be an example, benching, a haidah, a shvach, such type of brachas. And then these Birchas HaMitzvahs. Birchas HaMitzvahs is any bracha you make. Sign a bracha deraisa, sign a bracha derabbanan. All birchas, all mitzvahs that you make a bracha is a Birchas HaMitzvahs. Birchas HaMitzvahs is a bracha miderabanan. In other words, mideraisa, you put on tefillin. You don't have to make a bracha before. The Torah says put on tefillin. The Torah says sit in the sukkah. You don't have to make a bracha before you do the mitzvah. The Rabbanan said, and come, make a bracha before you do the mitzvah. So let's see over here, which is the bracha, these two brachas over here. Let's see what are the two brachas, and let's see which is the Raisa, which is the Rabbanan. So now, obviously, there's going to be a mitzvah, a bracha midirabanan, to make a bracha of Birchas HaMitzvahs. So that's technically the first bracha. Asher kedishanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu lasik b'divrei Seirah. So the first bracha would come out is the Birchas HaMitzvahs, which is a bracha derabanan. To bring a raya and a smach to this, that the first bracha, the Asher kedishanu, is the Rabbanan, and the second one we'll see is the Raisa. The Lashon HaTur, he brings the first bracha in Seven Mem Zayin in the Tfilas HaShach and Birchas HaTorah. The Torah says, "V'oid yesh bracha acheres al HaTorah, baruch atah Hashem asher bachar banu v'kol ha'amim." And zok the Torah, "V'yichavim b'berchasei al Maimin Har Sinai." When you make the second bracha, you should have in mind the Maimin Har Sinai. Eich bachar banu mikol umois v'kervanu l'fnei Har Sinai. What's the arichas in the Torah to explain the second bracha? And v'oid, the Bach asks, what's the Torah saying? V'oid bracha acheres. These two brachas. There's one bracha, and then there's another bracha. What's the Torah saying? Bracha acheres. So the Bach explains that the Torah is coming to answer why we say 2 brachas on Birchas HaTorah. Why is 1 bracha not enough? Any other mitzvah you do, you make 1 bracha. Why do you have to make 2 brachas? So the Bach explains the first bracha that we make is a Birchas ha-mitzvahs, like any other mitzvahs. Asher kedishanu mitzvahs of lasik v'divrei Torah, it's a Birchas ha-mitzvahs. Then there's a second bracha. That bracha is a different type of bracha. Bracha acheres, which means, like we said before in the Rambam, these 3 types of brachas. These are Birchas ha-mitzvahs, the Birchas ha-shvach, and then these are Birchas ha-nehenin. Zok the Tur, this second bracha that we're making is not like the first bracha that it's a Birchas ha-mitzvahs. Birchas ha-mitzvahs, 1 bracha would be enough. This bracha, the second bracha, is a bracha acheres, and which is a Birchas ha-shvach. Haidah, like the Tur says, which means we're giving a shvach that the Eibusher chose us to give us the Torah. So far we have very clearly that these 2 brachas, 1 bracha of Birchas HaTorah is a Birchas HaMitzvahs, and the second bracha is a Birchas HaShvach. Now, which one is the one that's Deiraisa? Is maybe the first one's Deiraisa. We said already that Birchas HaMitzvahs in general is the Rabbanan Machayev. But which one is the bracha Miderabanan? So if you take a look at the Ramban, when the Ramban says, and he argues on the Rambam, and he says it's Miderabanan, the Ramban speaks out clearly that the Deraisa is how we have to give a shvach. The Gemara says Kishem Hashem Ekra, the drasha from the Torah, and also when the Ramban speaks about it, he says how you have to give a shvach, a shevach vaydah to the Eibusher, which means it's a berachas hashavach. That's a deraisa. So if I ask you which of the 2 brachas is deraisa, the first bracha of Birchas HaTorah or the second bracha, so it's the second bracha because the first one is Birchas HaMitzvahs, the second one is Birchas HaShvach, and the Birchas HaShvach is the one that's deraisa. Just to bring out the idea that the bracha of Birchas HaTorah midiraisa is the Birchas HaShvach, which is the second bracha. The Taisus Yomtiv in Perik Zayin and Brachas says there's a big chiluk between the 2 brachas that we make in the Torah's Machayev to make, the Birchas HaMazon and the Birchas HaTorah. And he says the chiluk is the following. Before we make Birchas HaMazon, if you have a zimun, you say Nevarach Le'Lekeinu. Ma'ashe'en kein, by Birchas HaTorah, you get an aliyah, soon, the Oil HaTorah, Shchaydish, you get an aliyah, over there it's Baruch Hu Es Hashem HaMavorach. Says the Taisus Yomtiv, why by Birchas HaMazon do we say Nevarach Le'Lekeinu, which Le'Lekeinu is Midas Adin, and by aliyah we say Baruch Es Hashem HaMavorach, which is a Midas Arachvim. Says the Taisus Yomtiv, that it's very cholak the Haidah, the Birchas HaShvach that we're saying by Birchas HaMazon to the Birchas HaShvach that we're giving by Birchas HaTorah. By Birchas HaMazon, it's true that we give a shevach to Hashem and thank Him for all the food. But he says it's really kind of the Shuras Adin. You have the Eibusher created a world, so it makes sense. He created a world, He has to take care of the people that He created to make sure that they have food, to exist, to live. So good, we understand why Hashem gives us food. It's true, we're taki giving a haidah, but it's more midin, that it's midas adin. Of course, if the Eibusher created a world, He has to give zanim afarnas to all the people, to all the animals. That's the creation that He made. However, Birchas HaTorah, that's something that it's already midas arachim. That means that we're even more thankful to Hashem that Hashem gave us a Torah, because technically He didn't have to give us a Torah. You see that most of the world didn't get the Torah. So Mamela, that's the idea of the Birchas HaShavach of Birchas HaTorah. But to get it very clear, we're holding now that Birchas HaTorah is Mideraisa. Almost L'Kula Alma, even in the Rambam, everybody holds Birchas HaTorah as a bracha Mideraisa. Bein La Ramban, everyone holds this Deraisa. Which bracha is the Deraisa, the second bracha, the Birchas HaShavach? And just to show this idea that even if it's not a separate mitzvah, it could still be deraisa, the chinuch and Sefer HaMitzvahs, which most of the times goes with the Shittas Rambam, the chinuch is moina only the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah. he's not moined the mitzvah of Birchas HaTorah, and still in the chinuch is mefurish that Birchas HaTorah is deraisa. So you see, Birchas HaTorah, even though it's not a separate mitzvah, it's still deraisa. So you see, Klor Birchas HaTorah is deraisa, and as we explained, the second bracha is the one that's deraisa.
Where's the mavur that even though he's not mine, but there's still a mitzvah? Where's the mavur?
He says mafurish in a different place. The chinuch says Klor that Birchas HaTorah is deraisa. He's not moined for a second mitzvah, but he reads it's mafurish. I'll show you. He says Klor that it's deraisa. So you see, even though he doesn't bring it for a mitzvah, he still holds that it's deraisa.
But maybe it's a mitzvah, but it's included in the Limud HaTorah, like we said.
Absolutely, exactly like you said. You're 100% right, because he's taka when the chinuch is moine minyan mitzvahs, he's not moine anywhere the mitzvah of Birchas HaTorah. So obviously, if he holds that it's deraisa, it's a mitzvah mideraisa, and he doesn't count it, so the Torah says it's all included in the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah. It's a mitzvah, but it's included in the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah. That's Pshat in the Rambam also. The Rambam in Taryag mitzvahs doesn't bring the mitzvah of Birchas HaTorah because it's included in the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah. Just to, if we're speaking about the chiluk and types of brachas, just to bring out a halacha, a difference between other brachas, Birchas HaShavach, Birchas HaNehenin, and to us Birchas HaShavach, Birchas HaTorah is Birchas HaShavach, which means we're praising Hashem as opposed to any mitzvah, any Birchas HaNehenin, you eat something, you give, you make a bracha. The halacha is that if somebody doesn't make a bracha, you're not allowed to eat without making a bracha. And if somebody doesn't know what the bracha is, so misafik, you have to either eat two things. You cannot eat without making a bracha. You can't eat without making a bracha. The same din is by birchas without making a Birchas HaTorah. You're not allowed to learn without making Birchas HaTorah. At kedei kach that the Gemara says. It's very chomer, and the Shulchan Aruch says, you have to make a Birchas HaTorah before. You have to make Birchas HaTorah before learning the Torah. However, says Reb Chaim, Chadushay Agrach al Hashas, and Reb Shloime Zalman brings that also, Mincha Shloime, the same halacha, that if for some reason a person can't make a Birchas HaTorah, whatever the example would be, let's say he's mesupek Shavuos morning, whatever the case would be, if somebody's mesupek, if he can make Birchas HaTorah or not, he could go ahead and he could learn without Birchas HaTorah. By Birchas HaNehenin, you have to make a bracha before you eat it. Ma'asheka by Limud HaTorah, it's not like you're getting rishus. You have to, there's a din, by learning the Torah, you also have to say a Birchas HaShavach. You have to say a Birchas HaShavach. Let's say for some reason you can't make the Birchas HaShavach. If you can't make the Birchas HaShavach, it says Reb Chaim, Shlomo Zalman, and Mincha Shloime, you could go ahead and you can learn without Birchas HaTorah. You may ask me that if you say that Birchas, we're going to get to that, very good review, that if it's the Raisa, Masafik, you should do it, we're going to get to that, Be'ez Hashem. You may ask me that if how we're saying now, the first bracha is a Birchas HaMitzvahs, and the second bracha is a Birchas HaShavach, which is the Raisa. Why do we make the first bracha, which is the Rabbanan, why do we make that first? L'chayra, you should make the bracha that's the Raisa first. I want to share with the Olam a Levush. The Levush in Simon Mem Zayin says, why do we make two brachas? We spoke about it just right before. Why do you make two brachas? One is a Birchas HaShavach, one is Birchas HaMitzvahs. The Levush says, you know why you make two brachas in Birchas HaTorah? One bracha is like every bracha that you make, there's a bracha lefaneo and there's a bracha lacharel. We said the Yishalmi says why mideraisa you don't have to make a bracha lacharel, you can't make a kal v'chomer, mideraisa you don't have to. But Miderabanan, just like you make a mezainis ala michya, a shahakal bar nefashos, where's the bracha shel lacharel by Birchas HaTorah? Where's the bracha shalachra, Birchas HaTorah? Says the Levush that when would you make the bracha shalachra, Birchas HaTorah?
Learning.
When you finished learning.
Finished.
But what does it mean we're never finished? Technically, you're finished at the end of the day. Technically, you're finished, and you start again the next day. Why you're not finished? Because there's a chiyuv even when you're going to sleep to think and learning while you're going to sleep. You're supposed to fall asleep while you're thinking and learning. So when exactly are you supposed to make the bracha? Says the Levush, you make the bracha in the morning. The first bracha is the bracha shalachre of yesterday's learning. Last night you couldn't make the bracha. So therefore you make the bracha in the morning. So the first bracha is the bracha of last night, the end of last night's learning, and that's the bracha, the Rabbanan, and that's why we say the first bracha, Asher Kedishon, on last night's learning. He just asks that l'chayra, the bracha would seem that you're davening Asher Kedishon Lasik, which means you're davening on today's learning, right? So why are we saying the bracha of Lasik on yesterday's learning? So for that he answers, he says two things. First of all, every time you Limud HaTorah, you say Ashabachar Banu before you read in the Torah. So therefore, we want to make the bracha of Ashabachar Banu every single morning. We want to make that on the learning of today, which means before the learning. So therefore, the Asher Kedishanu Lasik is the bracha on last night's learning. Again, why is the first bracha Lasik on last night's learning? I would think Lasik is really mashma lehaba on today's learning. So he says no. That since Ashabachar Banu is a bracha by every Limud HaTorah on before the learning, so therefore every morning when we make Ashabachar Banu, that should rather be the bracha on before the learning. He says also a little bit more that Asher Kedishanu Lasik V'haravna. So he says V'haravna is a tefillah on the learning of yesterday, what we learned, that learning that we learned should stay by us, areva, sweet. That's the bracha of V'haravna. Also, when you learn new Torah, it shouldn't be, the new Torah, the learning shouldn't be doicher the old Torah, but the V'haravna itself is actually a bracha, tefillah on yesterday's learning. So mainly we have Klar, Birchas HaTorah is Mideraisa, the second bracha is the one that's Mideraisa, the first bracha is Miderabanan, and Birchas HaMitzvahs. We see even a chiddush from the Levush that it's actually going on the bracha of yesterday. That's who we're holding in Birchas HaTorah. What happens, like Rabbi Yehuda mentioned before, what happens if somebody's mesupik if he made Birchas HaTorah? We came out, Birchas HaTorah is Deraisa, Safek Deraisa L'chumra. You should have to say over Birchas HaTorah. The same is by Birchas HaTorah as well. If somebody forgot, if somebody's not sure if he said Birchas HaTorah or not, the halacha would be is that he has to say Birchas HaTorah over. What part of Birchas HaTorah does he have to say over? Does he say both brachas? Or does he say only the bracha, the second bracha, which is the Raisa? What would the Olam say?
Second.
The second. L'chayra, very right what you're saying, is the Rabbanan. Safek the Rabbanan l'kula. You shouldn't say it. The second bracha, Safek the Raisa l'chumra, you should say it.
Both, they're connected.
Both. So, you're also right in idea, v'harai by Birchas Hamazon. If somebody is mesupek if he benched or not, the halach is you bench over, and you bench over the whole entire benching. Not only the first three brachas, which is the Raisa, the fourth bracha, which is was Mesukin Keneged Haruge Beitar, which is the Rabbanan, you say that over also. So technically that should be the halacha also. By Birchas HaTorah you should say over both. The halacha is you only say over the bracha that's the Raisa, only the second bracha, and the Pri Chodesh asks the question. You take a right, you only say over the bracha that's the Raisa, and the shaila is, why do you only say over the bracha that's the Raisa? Just like Birchas Hamazon, once you say over, it's a package deal, you say everything. The same should be by Birchas HaTorah also, you should say over both brachas, package both.
It's two different types of brachas.
Gavaldik, Moiridik, that's what we want to bring out. Excellent, very good. It's two types of brachas. By Birchas Hamazon, it's all four of them, all four brachas, the Deraisa, the Rabbanan, is all a Birchas HaShvach, a Birchas HaIdah. It's all one type of bracha. So once the Rabbanan said to say it, once you mechuyev about Safek Deraisa L'chumra, you have to say over all four brachas. Ma'ashenke by Birchas HaTorah. Birchas HaTorah is a bracha. The first one is a Birchas HaMitzvahs. The second one is a Birchas HaShvach. So just because you're saying over the Birchas HaShvach, doesn't mean you should say over the Birchas HaMitzvahs. Therefore, you only say over You only say over the Birchas HaShavach, which is the second bracha, not the first bracha. However, there's still a chiluk between the two types of suffix.
What was that? Why didn't you just say the second one?
You only say the second one. We brought out very clearly that which bracha of the two brachas is the deraisa? The second bracha, which is the Birchas HaShavach. Like we said, the Ramban says mefurish that the Gemara says minayin that it's minat Torah kishem Hashem akra to give shvach. That's the deraisa. The first bracha, what type of bracha is the first bracha? It's a Birchas HaMitzvahs like any other bracha you find in any mitzvah. Birchas HaMitzvahs is always Miderabanan. And as well as Birchas HaTorah, we make two brachas. One bracha is a Birchas HaMitzvahs because we're doing the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah. That bracha is a bracha d'Rabbanan. We're also making a bracha that the Torah wants that we should make a Birchas HaShavach. So if you mesupik, if you made the Birchas HaTorah, which bracha should you say over? The one that's the Raisa, which is the Birchas HaShavach, which is Asher Bachar Banu. So you only say over Asher Bachar Banu, you don't say over the first bracha.
Why is it different than Birchas HaMazon?
Because Birchas HaMazon, the first three brachas that are the Raisa is a Birchas HaShavach. And then the fourth bracha, which is the Rabbanon, Haruge Beitar, is also giving a shvach that they came l'kura. So it's all four Birchas HaShavach. So once we're saying it over, we include already the bracha the Rabbanon as well, because it's one big bracha. When the Chachamim were masakin it, it's one big matbeya habracha, it's one big bracha. Mashing by Birchas HaTorah, it's two separate brachas. One bracha is a bracha is a Birchas HaShavach, and one is a Birchas HaMitzvahs. You're 100% right, but at least when they were masakin, the add-on wasn't just that they said, let's go and make another bracha. They added on to the big Birchas HaShavach Deiraisa, they included another piece to it, another part of Shvach, which is on a Ruge Beitar. It's true, it's a Birchas HaShavach and something else, but they included it onto the Shvach of the bracha of Shvach. Just to conclude with one more idea in this, what we're speaking about in Safek Birchas HaTorah, Safek Deiraisa, you have to say it over. There's a very big difference between if you mesupik, if you said Birchas HaTorah, or if you mesupik, if you mechuyev in Birchas HaTorah. I'll explain. If somebody came here to the Kol Boiker, and he started learning, and then he said, hey, did I make Birchas HaTorah or did I not make Birchas HaTorah? The halacha is, Safek Deiraisa l'chumra, you have to go ahead and you have to make a Birchas HaTorah. If we go to a place where, let's say, you mesupik, if you mechuyev in Birchas HaTorah, what would be an example, a case in Musafik Mechuyev Birchas HaTorah? Coming now, next week, Wednesday morning. You're up the whole entire night. And there's a suffix if you Mechuyev in Birchas HaTorah. What's the suffix? The suffix is the Chiyav Birchas HaTorah because of sleeping, so you didn't sleep. There's no half-sick. Or is the Chiyav Birchas HaTorah every morning a new bracha? That's the suffix. The halacha is Misafik, you do not make Birchas HaTorah. So I ask you, why Misafik do you not make Birchas HaTorah? Suffix Deiraisa is l'chumra. You should make Birchas HaTorah just like you make Birchas HaTorah on if you mesupik, if you made Birchas HaTorah. So why don't you make Birchas HaTorah over there? The answer is, if you're for sure mechuyev in Birchas HaTorah, it's a question if you said Birchas HaTorah, which means it took you out of the chiyuv of Birchas HaTorah. Safek Deiraisa l'chum, you have to make over Birchas HaTorah. So in the morning, if you're not sure if you made Birchas HaTorah, Safek Deiraisa l'chum, you have to say over Birchas HaTorah. Masha ein kain, if if you became mechuyev in Birchas HaTorah, Shavuos morning, we're not sure if you bechlal mechuyev in Birchas HaTorah, there, the Safek Deiraisa is not mechayev to say Birchas HaTorah. To bring out the idea, you see the exact same thing by benching also. By benching, if somebody's mesupik if he benched, for whatever reason, if he's mesupik if he benched, Safek Deiraisa is mechayev, then one has to bench again. Mashenket, if somebody's mechuyev, if he was bali dechi of benching, let's say he's not sure if he ate enough. Well, let's say he's not sure if what he ate was something that's Machayev Birchas HaMazon. Over there, Safek Deiraisa will not be Machayev Birchas HaMazon. So just to sum up, Birchas HaTorah is Deiraisa, Kamat like everybody. The second bracha is Deiraisa. And the first bracha is a Derabana, which is a Birchas HaMitzvahs, and the second bracha is a Birchas HaShavach. A good Chodesh and a good Shabbos.